Hi everyone, this is Grace, and today I'll be walking you through how I made this set celebrating 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So this set I actually designed completely from scratch, except for one of the cutters. I worked with Jessica over at Cut It Out Cutters to design a whole bunch of fun, different new cutters. And my goal here with this set, honestly, was to just have fun. It was just meant to celebrate, nothing profound at all. I decided to go with a balloon theme wall. Balloon wall theme, excuse me, get the words in the right order. So there's a lot of balloon letters, there are a lot of balloon walls, some that make sense and some that don't. And I'm totally here for all of it. So this first one here is 100K written in balloon letters. This is a completely gratuitous cutter. I don't know who else is ever going to use this, but I loved it. So the first thing I'm doing here, I am actually using, interesting that I chose to start with this cookie. I'm using a soft peak piping consistency for this entire cookie. So I'm outlining and I'm going to flood and do wet on wet, all with a soft peak. Y'all, this is one for the history books. So if you don't know what I mean by soft peak piping consistency, go check out my video on consistencies. That will be linked in the description. Why did I use a soft peak? So I was worried about craters with these letters. I could have used just like a thin flood, definitely not a thick flood. You do need to do some sort of outline and fill in situation here. In this case, I did let the outline dry ever so slightly before then flooding with a soft peak. Of course, the thicker the consistency you use, the less likely it's going to crater. Now, spoiler alert here, at least one of these letters did crater. Yeah, I don't know, people. But anyway, it is kind of amazing that you can do what I'm doing here all with a soft peak. And this is a true soft peak. Anything even a hair thicker would not work. It can settle with assistance, and somehow, because I'm working with such a small space, I can work fast enough and do this wet on wet, and I'm going to help these lines settle in just ever so slightly. That's what I'm doing with my scribe here, especially the last lines. Got to help those out. A little beginning and the end. Get those lines. Focus, Grace. Okay, the scribe here, I just want to say that I'm using is the Americolor. No, why did I just say Americolor? PME scribe. And this you can find on my Amazon shop. I always have 3 scribes when I work. The PME is the smallest one. Then I have a medium size, also metal one, and that is from Borderlands Bakery. And then I have a thicker plastic one, and that's the Thingamajiggy. Yes, you heard that right. By the Cookie Countess. It's pink, it's plastic. It also has a good like scraper end to it. Love it. All right, so one thing I want to talk about real briefly. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that when we do the black. Switching gears, let's talk about the colors. So we're starting here with black and white. And for both of these, I used the Sugar Art Master Elites. So the black and the white, whatever. I think that's just what they're called. I do color my white icing. I know. I didn't used to, but I started maybe a year ago-ish, and I never turned back because it gives me a nice bright white. Love it. I prefer the Sugar Art Master Elite. The only downside to that is you have to activate the Master Elites with water. So if you're already working with an icing at the perfect consistency, I would not recommend a Master Elite because it's obviously going to thin your icing. In which case, use a gel. The Americolor gel is a good option. I think it's bright white. So I love the pop of the white. And then the black is the Master Elite Black. And if I'm coloring a black icing, this is the only black coloring I use. It's a highly pigmented powder. You don't need as much of it to color your icing as you do with gel coloring. You still need to allow it to develop overnight. I absolutely, with black, make it the night before. You really need that like full 8 hours plus to develop. I make it a dark gray. Excuse me. And by the morning, it's usually black. But even if it's like a really, really, really dark gray and not quite black yet, don't add more coloring. Please don't add more coloring. I mean, I say please, trust the process. Believe me that by the time you get to decorating, by the time it dries, it will look black. With black in particular, it's super easy to oversaturate. And when you use too much food coloring, even the powdered stuff, it really can ruin your icing and how it dries. So just keep that in mind. Even when I'm not using a soft peak to flood, I sometimes do like to do, excuse me, I do like to do wet on wet with a soft peak, which you can do even if you're working with like a thin flood. And sometimes the reason I do that is because I just have more control with a soft peak than I do with a flood, because something like these dots or these lines can totally be done with a flood, but I just have more control. And something I have to do if I'm going to be doing a really small detail like this with a flood consistency, what I'll actually do, since I'm working with tipless bags, is I will, if I can, I will do those cookies first, and I will cut a much smaller tip in those flood bags so that I have more control over the icing that's coming out of it. If I'm using the size tip that I use to flood, no bueno. It's just too big, too thick, not ideal at all. So yeah. You can see here I'm using a scribe to settle out this soft peak. This is really a soft peak. If I'm using something slightly thicker, I usually like to settle out the icing with the tip of the bag as I flood, as opposed to what I was doing here, which I was just like flooding like normal and then using a scribe. Yeah, but I knew I was going to be doing a lot of bubble work, like balloon work with my soft peak. So I made sure that if anything, my soft peak was on the soft side, so that I could have maximum leverage to do things like this. So just using my scribe to kind of jiggle the surface. And then here we go. Oh, you see a little crater on the black? Y'all, I don't know what happened. So disappointing. All right. So next up is this balloon cluster. And I actually did this in 2 different ways intentionally because I wanted to be able to share 2 different ways to do it. So this is kind of, I guess, the more traditional, obvious way to do a balloon cluster. I'm using an edible marker here and my projector to project the drawing of the design. It's funny. I always say that I use Food Doodler. I know you heard me say that. Food Doodler, edible markers for writing on cookies, but apparently I'm using, I don't even know what those are. They're easily found on Amazon, but anyway, I don't know why I use that marker. The tip of it's a bit bigger than the Food Doodler. I like the Food Doodler for writing on cookies because the tip is very stiff and it's a good size. And I find that it doesn't get too tired too quickly with, when I say tired, like usually when working with an edible marker, after a minute of it interacting with the butter, it really is not very happy. And it kind of stops working, but I get the most out of my Food Doodler. So this is basically the same idea as the 100K bubble letters. These are just balloons. Bubble letters or balloon letters? Balloon letters. Okay. So I'm outlining first. And somehow here it looks like I forgot to press my autofocus on my phone before I filmed. Oopsies. I usually do that. I make it focus on the cookie always, even if my hand gets in the way. Oh well. So I did plan out ahead of time which balloons were going to be which color. Speaking of colors, let's talk about this color palette. I know it's not like my typical color palette, but ironically enough, it's actually the colors. Excuse me. I'm sorry, friends. Real talk. It's 10:45 at night and I'm doing this, but it's been a hot minute since I posted the compilation and I wanted to make sure that I got the tutorial out before next year. So here I am, hustling, burning the candle at both ends. But anyway, love my job. So, by the way, I'm not encouraging to burn the candle at both ends because friends, like y'all, I need more balance in my life. But that's a topic for another day. Let's talk about the cookies. Maybe I'll have time later to shoot the, okay. Focus, Grace. So the colors here is the color of my logo. Actually, is the gray in my logo? I don't even know. I just know the black, excuse me, and this, I don't know, pinkish, reddish color. I don't really know what to call this. I'm not very good at advertising my logo, clearly, but I have one. It's super cute. It's a drawing that my mom did. My mom is a painter. My mom's an artist. And I asked her one day to, when I was trying to come up with a logo, I was like, Mom, when you hear the Graceful Baker, like, what do you think of when you hear the Graceful Baker? And so she drew me as a ballerina with a mixing bowl. Sorry that I keep yawning. I'm not a ballet dancer. Sorry, spoiler alert. But I liked it. I was like, the Graceful Baker makes sense. I mean, I am a performing artist. I'm a musician. But yeah. So all I'm doing here is I'm flooding alternating balloons with that soft peak again. And this is the concept of flooding in sections, right? So you don't want to flood any balloons that are right next to each other because you want to do alternating ones so they can crust and then move on to the next. Now I know obviously the one I'm doing right now is ever so slightly touching that like pinkish reddish one. I think someone called that mauve on Instagram. Is that the color mauve? I don't really know what mauve looks like. So if anyone knows that for sure, drop the deets in the comments, please. But I think I was a little too impatient trying to get as much as I could flooded in the first round. Alas. I wanted the bottoms of the balloons to also be separate from the top of the balloon, if that makes sense. So there we go. It has crusted ever so slightly. Like you can see the icing is still kind of wet, which I don't know. What am I trying to say? Oh, right. I mean, I can tell it has crusted just enough, which is all I really need when doing flooding in sections. It just needs to crust just barely so that you can put something next to it and it's not going to just like melt into each other. This one I feel like I did towards the end of decorating. Is that possible? Because it looks like my icing is starting to separate, which is not good, but inevitable. Royal icing naturally separates over time. The liquid separates from the meringue powder and the powdered sugar. My recipe separates too soon. Sometimes as soon as like 4 hours if it's really humid out. But more like 6-ish, something like that. Um, it really is the bane of my existence. So some people can, like some people who teach, they can bag their icing the night before, which I am immensely jealous of, and it will be fine the next morning. But because my icing separates so much and kind of quickly, I can't do that. So when I teach classes, I have to wake up super early in the morning and bag icing, which I'm yawning just thinking of it. Oh man, the last class I taught, which I guess, wait, the last in-person class I taught was the first in-person class I had taught in over 2 years since like pre-pandemic. And oh man, I looked at my calendar, my schedule that I had made 2+ years ago, and I had just left an hour in the morning to bag icing. And I was like, oh, great. So I woke up anticipating to just spend an hour, but something told me in my gut to start, like, I always create a schedule for myself morning of, and I was going to meditate. I was going to eat breakfast, do all this stuff before I bag the icing. And then, but just when I woke up after I brushed my teeth, I was like, I feel like I should start bagging icing now. And y'all, I am so glad that I did. But I still realized an hour before I was supposed to walk out the door that there was no way I was going to finish. Or maybe it was like 45 minutes. I don't know. But I texted my roommate. It was 7:30, 7:45 on a Saturday morning. God bless my roommate. And I was like, are you awake? I know she usually wakes up pretty early, thankfully. And she was awake. And I was like, oh my God, I need your help. Because, I'm a one-woman show. Like, I don't have help putting this stuff together. And I was like, I just need your help to bag icing, please. And thank you, please, God. And she helped me, thankfully. So when I bag icing, I use this little contraption that I think is linked in my Amazon shop, to use little colored tape to close the bag, if that makes sense at all. Am I making sense? I don't know. Anyway, it appears there's an art to doing that, because as much as I am so grateful for her help, a lot of the bags were not totally sealed, and we had a couple of poppers during class. Whoops. But I walked out the door at 8:30, which is when I was supposed to leave, and I inhaled a Cliff Bar for breakfast, and like, thank God for my roommate, because whoa, I realized after the fact that I just lost my brain. Where was my brain going? I realized after, right. So I realized after the fact that I would actually bag my thicker consistencies the night before, and I would put those in the fridge and then say a prayer, and it would be good enough so that I only had to take an hour in the morning to bag icing. Now, side note, when I do that, I will make the icing like a hair thicker than it's supposed to be, knowing that it will probably thin just a little bit in the fridge. The thinner the icing, the faster it will separate. So the thing with the last class that I did was that it was a beginner class, and I did the whole class in one consistency, which was a thick flood. So even if I had remembered that I bagged like my piping consistencies the night before, it wouldn't have mattered, because I did all thick flood, and so it all had to be bagged the morning of. I just should have left more time. But anyway, so this balloon, what is this called? String. I don't know. I did the white strings, and I was like, it needs something else. It needs a little more dimension. It needs some more, like, something to call it out, make it more special. So I just added these little like diagonal piped lines to kind of show that there is that kind of string that's like two colors. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of rolled with it. Obviously, the lines didn't actually like settle into the white, but I think it looks really cool. And I actually did it on, I think, on at least one other cookie in this set. So we'll see that later. And we are almost done with this cookie. Yeah, there we go. All right. What do we have next? Okay. We have this disco ball. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all. So when I was thinking about designing this, I was like, is it really necessary to come up with a disco ball cutter? Because most people that do a disco ball either use an ornament cutter or will just use a circle. Yeah, so this is super not necessary. Friends, just use a circle. But since I was like going all out and, designing a set, I thought, why not? Why not? Might as well. So I don't know. I like it. Although you're going to see in a hot minute that I really, really struggled with the little sparkly starbursty things. So this here, I made 3 different color grays for this set. This is no. Sorry. Wait, I made 2 grays and a black. This is the middle color. And honestly, it's too dark because by the time it dries, it like almost looks black. This was unfortunate, but oh well. It can be very deceiving how much black food coloring can darken over time. And I have a hunch I tried to like mess with this color in the morning and I probably added too much black. And it just kept getting darker and darker and darker. But anyway, I digress. So my little trick, by the way, with outlining that circle is make sure you start and end the outline at a place that's going to get covered up if you can, especially with a circle. So that little bit is going to get covered up with the sparkle. This here, to give it the disco ball, is the Sugar Art Sterling Pearl in New Silver. They have a couple of other silver options that are newer that might be more like sparkly and shiny, but they're really dark silvers. So for this, I wanted to use a lighter silver. I do kind of wish that I had flooded this in the lighter gray because that would have probably helped the coverage of this new silver better. So in a minute, nope, I guess I'm not. I definitely thought I did a second layer. I guess I didn't. All right. That's fine. Cause you can tell it's like not completely covered. This here, I'm trying to figure out, should I do the across lines first or the up and down? So clearly I decided across. And I eyeball the majority of my line work. I just happen to have a very steady hand, a good eye. I know I don't have a lot of tips to be helpful, but the ones I can in terms of piping lines to make it more, or to set yourself up for success. Let's do it that way. The first thing you want to make sure you're bracing your arm somewhere on the table. If you're working really close to the edge of the table, then you can brace your arm on the edge of the table. Like I will put just above my elbow on the edge, or if I'm working kind of farther in, I'll put my elbow on the table. Whatever you do, you want to make sure that you have almost 180 degree radius on your arm. So that's the first thing. And if you don't have a naturally steady hand, just side note here what I'm doing. So I like there to be like a seamless waterfall look off the edge when I do line work. So I always have a little extra icing. Like I'm better at finishing my lines than starting them. So what it looks like. Am I still doing it on that side too? Nope. Okay. So I will usually use a scribe. I will use my PME scribe, so the smallest one, to kind of cut off the extra bit of icing at the beginning. Just a side note. So, okay. Brace your elbow, arm, whatever. And then if you don't have a super steady hand to begin with, you can brace your decorating hand with your other hand. So I'm right-handed. So I can take my left hand, and I would recommend using your pointer finger and your middle finger, and you can lightly brace either the palm of your hand or the icing bag. This is just a personal preference. It's not really indicative of whether you are an advanced cookier or not. I can think of 2 expert advanced cookiers who brace their piping hand. It's just personal preference. I personally do not. I find it more of a hindrance to brace my decorating hand. So just a side note. When doing line work, you want to use a soft peak piping consistency for the most part. It just lays the best. And something like this, where you're laying lines on top of each other, I think it's especially important to use a soft peak because they'll kind of melt into each other better. I find that when you're doing these crisscross lines, if they sit on top of each other too much, then you're more likely to run the risk of like when they dry, there's space in between the cookie and the raised line, and it makes it very easy. Like if you just knock against those dried lines, they'll crack very easily, and then you'll cry. Alrighty, once I let those lines dry, now we're going to move on to these starbursty situation things. So the first step is that you need to kind of flood that area so that you're level with the rest of the cookie before you actually add the full starburst. Why am I calling it a starburst? What is it? A shiny thing? I feel like I had the word for it earlier. Sparkles. They're sparkles. Okay. Took me a minute to get there. This is a soft peak that I'm rocking here. And okay. Do I let that dry? No. So I don't need to let it like dry because it's a piping consistency. So I'm just going in here and flooding, outlining on top, and then going in and flooding. And the second I started doing these, I was like, oh my God, I hate them. They look terrible. Ugh. Yeah. So I decided I needed to actually use a real flood consistency for this. So I just kind of filled in the center so as to hopefully prevent craters. And then covered that with my thin flood that I was working with. And then it was like overflowing. I thought this was going to be the absolute dud of the set. I was so proud of my line work, but I felt like the sparkles just ruined everything. All right, not only is it late, but I also have allergies. Anyone else suffering from like the worst allergies ever? I thought I had a cold. Now I'm fairly certain I have allergies. And now I think I realize I actually have a sinus infection. Oy. But for the first time ever, I got like swollen, itchy, yucky eyes, and I did not understand what was happening. Finally, when I was rudely awoken at like 1 a.m. 2 nights ago, was like, all right, it's time to do something about this. So I also, then I used DoorDash for the first time in my life. and I DoorDashed. Thank God I live in New York City, and there are pharmacies open 24 hours. Not, of course, not the ones closest to me, but they exist. And so I DoorDashed at like 1:30 in the morning. Eye drops, like antihistamine eye drops. Life freaking saver. So I've been using those eye drops for the last couple days, or last day. I don't know. This whole week is a blur. And they've helped so much. And then when I realized today I actually had a sinus infection. Side note, I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, but here we are, friends. Here we are. So I guess I just want to distract from these ugly, ugly sparkles. What was I talking about? Oh, right. So my sinus infection. So I got Flonase for the first time ever in my life today. I realized it was a sinus infection, partly because I thought I was getting a headache, and then I realized it was sinus pressure. But then at the same time, when I chew, I feel like it's like chewing into my sinuses on my right side. Not fun. If anyone knows any more about that, also drop that in the comments. That might be weird. Be like, why are they talking about sinus infections on a cookie video? Y'all, they should have listened to the voiceover. Okay, so when I saw these dry, I was like, oh my God, they look freaking terrible. I need to do something about these sparkles because they have ruined this beautiful line work. So what I did, somehow I thought adding a second layer would make it look better. I added this and I was like, all right, I have now just made it worse. But I will do something in a moment that will somewhat redeem me. And just add, metallic paint to anything, everything. It makes it better. I feel like the paint just brought it up a notch. I was really nervous to do it. So for the majority of these cookies, I only made 2 of them, which is very stressful. I mean, the most stressful, of course, is making one. The set that I made last week, I made one of like 17 of the 20 designs. Yes, I made 20 designs. Insane. Anyway, hopefully I will release that video next week-ish. Get my life together. Okay. So I thought this looked so much better covered in the silver. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, make sure you let that icing dry first. I'm mixing, this is again the Sugar Art Sterling Pearl New Silver. That's NU, not NEW, NU New Silver. And I mix it with their color solution. Love the disco ball. But you can also use Everclear. You have to use a really high proof clear alcohol because the alcohol evaporates, and that's what allows it to essentially dry. So this next cookie is the balloon wall that says yay. Originally, I was going to have it say 100K, and then I felt like doing something simpler, so I went with 100K instead. Now, what can we talk about here? This whole set is using 2 consistency outline and flood, using a soft peak to outline, and then a thin flood to flood. And the reason I did this is, well, why did I do that? At least with this cookie, there's a decent amount of wet on wet. I don't know, just in general, like if you've been around for a while, if you're like an OG follower, you know that for the longest time I preferred to do a 1 consistency outline and flood with a thick flood. But now I feel like I'm getting into like a bit more detail work, slightly more refined kind of work. And with that, you really do need to use a 2 consistency outline and flood. It just allows you to do so much more and have so much more precision than the 1. So, yeah. Then this is the moment where I feel like I ruined this. Sometimes, so this is the Sugar Art Diamond Dust in white. I don't know if it's called, it's like White Diamond, I think is the name. Now, this is edible glitter. Most often, edible glitter makes everything better. But in this case, it did not make everything better. Ugh. I like instantly regretted it, but here we are. It's just something about it on the white icing that just doesn't quite work. I thought it was just going to make it like glisten. No. Nope. So, excuse me. With the 3 different balloon walls, I did kind of 3, well, really only 2 different approaches, I guess, but 3 different designs. Because I wanted variety, of course. So this approach to a balloon wall is to do the first layer wet on wet, and then you just need 1 layer next, I think, if I recall. This is an approach to use less icing, so you're not going crazy with icing, but also it's just a nice design element, I guess. I wish I had done more like different size balloons. Confession time. All right. This was my first time doing balloon wall cookies. And if you're in the cookie world or you observe the cookie world often, you know that balloon walls have been a thing for like at least a year. I tend to get on trends very late. Better late than never? I don't know. Like at least cookie trends. Yeah, I jump on them late. Oh well. So I wanted the yay to look like, what are they called? The like light up letters. So the big ones that, usually sit on the floor. This is actually a picture of of these big light up letters. So those are light bulbs in the middle. So in this case, I'm just piping this outline directly onto the cookie. So I'm just outlining the letter because you want some sort of sense of dimension with these letters. Did you just hear me yawn into the phone? Into the microphone. Oh, this is the moment where I go, all right, Grace, do you want to keep pushing yourself or do you want to like stop and finish this tomorrow? Yeah, I'm usually of the camp of like, just get her done. Just do it. So we're just going to see if we can do it. All right. So these are meant to be the little light bulbs. Big fan. And then once this dries, then we're going to paint it with that new silver again. Super real talk, friends. I don't love this color palette. I wish I had gone with something either softer or brighter, but here we are. Here we are. So the idea here is on this second layer. So I'm using the soft peak here again. You don't want to fill in all of the space. You still want to have some negative space, some white space, to make it most visually appealing to the eye. You can see right there how close that dark gray is to the black. Too close, too close. Lesson learned for Grace. So the nice thing about a soft peak in this case is that you need barely any like suggestion from that scribe to help it settle. I'm finding this very mesmerizing to watch. I hope you all are too. So another one of the reasons that I'm kind of cranking this video out now is that my mom is actually coming tomorrow, and we're going to go visit her sister for the weekend, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time in New York. And then I'm actually headed out of town for a week and a half to go visit some friends and to do a bachelorette bridal shower kind of situation with a college friend. So it's not really vacation because, self-employed, and I've only been self-employed for how long? Wait, January, February, March, April, May. Oh, gosh, has it been February, March, April, May. Been just over 4 months. So the end of January is when I started working full-time. Technically, I quit my day job in December, but I took a month off. Anyway, so it's not really a vacation, but I also know I'm not going to be able to work that much. I mean, obviously, during the bachelorette, I can't work. But yeah, so I'm trying to get as much done before my mom comes that I can. So that I might actually have some time off. And I gotta say, y'all, balance. I don't know what balance is right now, and it's not good. It's not good for anyone to not know what balance is. I always feel burned out. It's not good. And yeah, and especially being a creator and working for yourself, being a creative and working for yourself, you can't just pull creativity out of the other end, when you're burning the candle at both ends. It's really hard. So if you follow me over on especially TikTok and Instagram, you can tell I have not been posting as much lately because I just finding the motivation y'all, I don't understand how people do it. I don't get it. It's freaking hard. But anyway, I'm incredibly blessed. I'm so grateful that this is my job. I've just got a lot of figuring out to do, which I will tell you about in a second. Okay, because side note, we're going to talk about what I'm doing here. All right, so I attempted to create some extra dimension because I wanted, you tell me if I actually succeeded. So the first layer that I'm doing here on the inside of the letters is a thinner version of this silver paint. So to make it thinner, less opaque, you just add more liquid to it, more Everclear or more color solution from the Sugar Art. And what I'm going to do is thicken or make it thicker, make it darker for the outline. So for that, I just add more powder into my little mixer thing. Side note, what I always mix my metallics in, at some point, if I have too many yawns, I gotta stop. Okay. So, I actually bought these for class. I don't know why, because I never used them. On Amazon, you can buy little almost like makeup. I don't know what they're called. Goodness gracious. I don't know. It's the size of a quarter. Little containers with lids, plastic containers. And so I always mix my metallics in those containers and I reuse them. So I used to use a fresh bowl every time I mixed a metallic when I first started using them. And these things are expensive. And I wasted so much because I always cleaned out the bowl after every time. But if you're using a little reusable container, then you just make sure you're using the same metallic in the same container every time. But it kind of dries up, but the powder still stays there. So you just need to add some liquid to it to kind of reactivate it. So let's get back to the letters. how do we feel? Did I succeed? I think I succeeded in making the outline darker. I think it looks cool. So back to my getting my life together. I feel like this is the season of getting my life together. I'm doing so many things to really provide structure and do things better. So business-wise, I signed up for 2 workshops. I don't know if that's not the right word, workshop, but I keep calling them workshop because I can't think of what the right word is. But one is for PR, public relations, and one is more like a general business coaching intensive kind of thing. Oh, right. I forgot. So I wanted sorry, I'll get back to that story in a second. I forgot. So I wanted the outline and I wanted the light bulbs to be darker. So it adds a little more dimension to it. So it's not all just like one flat color. I think it looks cool. Maybe it wasn't worth it. I don't know, but I like it. So, okay, back to getting my life together. I signed up for the PR course is 10 weeks and the business coaching is 90 days. These are hosted by 2 women who I've been following for quite a while. And I've always been amazed by them. And just one day I woke up and was like, I need help. I need help figuring out what in the world I'm doing. So I can run my business better and I can have balance in my life and I can be less stressed because Grace is too stressed. So the PR one is run by Meg Androsiglio. Go check her out on Instagram. It's called Vision to Voice. And then the business one is by Diana Davis, and it is called Camp Clarity. So I've already started the PR one, and this is so that I can, approach brands myself, and I can pitch brands for paid partnerships and that kind of stuff, or the other sorts of collaborations, or also so that I can get in more media. At this point, I've done only earned media. Like I've had something go majorly viral and then I've had media outlets approach me wanting to cover the story. I'm like, great, sure. But I'm moving into a season of wanting to be more proactive. So that's the PR side. And then the business coaching, I have not started yet. I start it next week. And for that's the kind of stuff I'm going to learn there. I'm going to learn like finances, time management. Oh my God. Yay! Look at this cookie. Okay. I am so incredibly excited about time management help because friends, I'm just so excited. I'll keep talking about that in a second. Okay, because I want to address what I'm doing right here, which is this is a fun technique. I'm just painting this silver directly on the cookie. I think it's a super cool look, super cool effect. I did not come up with this, friends. This is the one cutter in the set that I did not design. Jessica already had this cutter at Cut It Out Cutters. It's her Fireworks. It comes in a bunch of different sizes. This is the smallest one. It's like 2 inches. As I always do with a set, I always want to make sure I have at least one really simple design. This one this is the most simple, and then I have 2 kind of step up simples, the individual balloons that I'll show you at the end. Does a firework really go with this set? I don't know. It's just supposed to be like a celebratory, fun, gratuitous set. So I rolled with it, folks. I rolled with it. And I'm using a soft peak piping consistency to pressure pipe out these little burst things. And what I mean by pressure pipe is I'm like varying the amount of pressure on my bag and applying a lot of pressure instead of just like piping a line, if that makes any sense. This is like an extended version of a teardrop or like a watermelon seed or a strawberry seed. Yeah. So back to the business coaching. This is my first time being self-employed ever in my life. I have always worked for an organization for, I guess, I mean, 10, yeah, basically 10 years. 10 years post graduating from college, I always worked for an organization. And this is my first time running my own ship. And it's like both amazing and terrifying at the same time. And things like setting a schedule for yourself and like finding a way to create balance is really freaking challenging. So, point of the story is I'm super stoked. It's a 90-day workshop course intensive, whatever it's called. We're going to learn a lot of different things. Very excited. I just took a little break and yet I'm still yawning. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm feeling very talkative tonight. I wonder if y'all enjoy it or just want me to talk about cookies and like, Grace, stop talking about other things. Okay. There's the little firework. What are we on to next? Okay. This is another balloon wall. I don't know. One of the single balloons is a star and oh, right. No, that came after this. I wanted to create 3 different balloon walls that were all very different. So this is just a star with a balloon wall attached to it. I don't know, friends. I told you. This set is just for fun. Who cares? So what I'm ultimately going to do with this set, with this cutter, I should say, with this design, is what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to crackle this. Yeah, I just thought, why not? For fun. The crisscross outline that I did there, BT dubs, some people do it religiously, and I think it's because it's like supposed to help create a better kind of corner. I don't know. I don't swear by it. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. If I'm using a thicker outline, I find that it tends to be actually harder to work with because it like creates too much buildup in that corner. But anyway, I digress. So this is an instance where I do feel like the diamond dust that I'm about to apply, chef's kiss, adds so much to it. I love putting diamond dust on before doing Crackle. Okay, now you can see it. Yay! This is the same white diamond. 9 times out of 10, I just use the white. I only own white and 2 different golds and a silver, and I own a silver of the diamond dust. They have so many different colors. I find that 9 times out of 10, the white is just the best. It just enhances the color below it. It's my favorite. So this Crackle technique. Now, the number one question I always get asked is, how long do you let it dry before you crackle it? And I'm sorry, but it's not a simple answer, as with most things with royal icing, because it depends on how fast your icing dries, and how fast your icing dries depends on how thick it is and the environment that you're working in. So something really thin is going to take longer to dry. Thicker will take less time. If you're working in a humid environment, it will take longer to dry. If it's really dry, then it takes less time to dry. And what you're going for is you're looking for just the top layer of the icing to have dried so that you can crack the surface. If you're cracking it and it's more like an indentation, that means that the icing hasn't dried enough. So what I usually do, I do use a dehydrator. But I think this rule of thumb still works even if you're not using a dehydrator, is I set a timer for 10 minutes and I go from there. Sometimes that's enough and sometimes it's not enough. Depends on, again, the icing I'm working with and the weather. I can tell by eye if it's dried enough. If you're less familiar, then it's always good to have an extra cookie so that you can kind of do a test run and see if it's dry enough. If you are using a dehydrator, make sure that your cookie sits out for a minute so that it can cool down before you go and crackle it. The tool I was using there is a fondant tool that I just happened to get from CookieCon. I don't actually work with fondant, but I really like that for Crackle because you just want something with a rounded end. So before I had that fondant tool, I just used the end of a paintbrush, and which is totally fine. You don't need a fondant tool. Just make sure that you're using a paintbrush that has a rounded end to it. If you use something with, like, many paintbrushes actually have like flat ends to them, that's no good. You do not want that. So I let this first layer just crust a little bit. Since I am working with like on the thin end of a soft peak, it's actually like if I was working with something slightly stiffer, slightly thicker, then I could just do all the bubbles at one time, but then they wouldn't flatten out or like settle out so nicely as these do. So pros and cons to both. And obviously I didn't need to crackle the entire surface since I was covering much of it with balloons. There's great debate on Instagram about what this is. And I haven't answered anyone because I don't know. I'm enjoying seeing all the guesses. It's just a star balloon wall. I mean, come on. Aren't you familiar with star balloon walls? Right? Yeah. I know. So am I done yet? Do I have more balloons to stick on there? Oh, I'm contemplating. I'm like, where else do I need to put one? So you can see the crackle. I mean, the crackle already shines like that, but when you add the diamond dust to it, it just like makes it sparkle even more. I love it. A big fan. All right, Grace, you done yet? Nope. I'm getting there. Yay. All right, there's my star balloon wall. Okay, remember when I said that I did 2 different variations of this balloon cluster? Here is the second one. And you know what, friends? I really am struggling. So I think I've got another like 38 minutes left of this. I'm going to put this down for now. I'm going to get up early tomorrow, finish this video. Cannot wait. It's been super fun spending about an hour with you so far, but you know what? Gotta call it a night because I don't want to keep yawning in your ear. I mean, unless you want me to yawn in your ear, that's a whole other thing. All right. I'm going to be back. I mean, momentarily, but it's going to be tomorrow morning. Okay. I love you all. See you in a minute. Hello, beautiful people. I'm back. All right. So this is the second balloon cluster. And for this one, we're doing things a little bit differently. Instead of filling in all of the balloons as one would normally do, we're just going to flood the cookie here first. And then just going to outline the balloons on top of it. Often when I do sets, I will intentionally do some things in a different way. Like I felt like it was a waste to just do all of the balloon clusters the same way. Why not try some different techniques? And that's the same way I kind of approached the 3 different balloon walls, doing something a little bit different so you guys can learn something different. I can teach something different. As a content creator, there's definitely a different focus in how I approach my sets than someone who's just making them to sell them. Because I'm here to entertain and to teach, and variety is the spice of life, my friends. All right. So I'm just projecting the image of the cutter again here, and it's the same cutter for both of these, same size. So obviously these balloons will appear a little bit smaller because of the outlining that we're doing here, leaving some space around the edges. You could also do this as wet on wet, but I don't know. I feel like it might be a little too plain if it's just wet on wet. But if you feel called to do that. Also, it's just easier, I think, to let the flood crust before doing this part of it. Some of these cutters are actually pretty sizable. Like this one here, I want to say it's like 4 inches. I might be lying. It might be like 3.75. I don't know. But some bigger cutters, but also balance out your bigger cutters with some smaller ones too. I think, visually it's good to have a variety. Also, obviously, if you're making these cookies for a party or something like that, people always like to have different sizes to pick from, just as a side note. All I can think about right now is breakfast. It's very early in the morning. Sorry, that was like a laugh cough. Lord have mercy. All right. What else can I talk about here? So this morning I woke up at 6 a.m., which brought me back to the days when I was hustling my day job and cookies as a side hustle. In the last, I want to say 6 months to maybe a year of my day job, I would wake up at 6 a.m. so that I could get 2 hours of cookie work in before I started my day job at 9. And then I would use my lunch hour during my day job to do more cookie work. Luckily, because of the circumstances of the last couple of years, I actually was able to work from home. So that made kind of juggling everything a little bit easier. I live in New York City, so I didn't have to waste time commuting. And no one had a social life. So I just spent all of my time on cookies. But so I would wake up at 6, 2 hours before I started my day job at 9. Lunch hour I did with cookies, and then I would usually give myself like 5 to 6 p.m. because I did my day job from 9 to 5. And 5 to 6 was like me time. And then, was that 5 to 6? Or 5 to 7 was me time. Or at least I tried to make it me time. And then 7 to 9, I did another 2 hours of work. And then 9 o'clock, I'd try to turn off, literally and figuratively, like, turn off all the devices, because I'm staring, at a screen all day, whether it's my laptop or my phone, and take some time to just kind of relax, and then go to bed by 10, usually. That was the balloon cluster. This is the third balloon wall, which I honestly think looks the most authentically like a balloon wall, but I feel like it's throwing a lot of people. And you'll see in a minute why I think it is most authentically a balloon wall. I gotta say, so I talked about this earlier, I know in the video, I used to be staunchly against, maybe that's a little aggressive, but I was a big fan of doing a one consistency outline in Flood, and I'm really digging the two consistency these days. I just made a set where I think I used an extra thin Flood, which I cannot remember the last time I used an extra thin Flood on an entire set. Like, who is this girl? Well, even then, no, I was just thinking about it. It was probably more like a thin, let's be real, because I get really nervous making my Flood really thin, like extra thin. But I know a lot of people that work with super thin Floods all the time. So bless them. I was just thinking of one friend in particular, Luna of Arlo's Cookies. She uses a super thin Flood, and she has the tiniest outlines. Like, the thickness of my outline here is like, I'd say like medium. But hers are even thinner. They're like half the thickness, and it just boggles my mind that she doesn't get more like Flood over. I mean, how do we know how much anyone anyone gets over Flood? I mean, you don't see it when it happens. You don't see it when it happens to me because it happens off camera after I'm done filming. It does happen every once in a while, maybe like once per set. I tend to be a little aggressive in how much I Flood, which can very easily lead to some overflood. If you catch it before the icing has started to crust, you can certainly fix it. Once the icing has started to crust, then it's a bit more challenging at that point to fix it. So just keep that in mind. All right. So here I am. I'm working on the part of this balloon wall that I really think makes it an iconic balloon wall. You know, the balloon walls that have, I don't even know what it's called. The like shiny, sparkly kind of streamers that come down that are just on the wall. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm going to paint this with that new silver. So it's shiny and pretty. But I'm just I'm just layering a whole bunch of lines, right? Layering, layering, layering. This is going to take me a hot minute. So I'm obviously not caring about the starts of my lines because I'm going to cover those with balloons. But the ends of my lines is important. And I'm really bringing it down over the edge, which I love. Love, love. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. This is a soft peak piping consistency. I think, yeah, all of my piping consistency from this set is a soft peak. I'm in that phase in the morning where I'm still like, my body is still waking up. Oh, can't wait for breakfast and coffee. I think I'm going to take my mom to the diner at the end of the block. Yeah. I grew up on diner food. I don't know if anyone else knows what I mean. My dad loves diners. He just loves like the casual simplicity of a diner, although many diners have like 30-page menus. So wherever we go, like he's always comfortable at a diner. So I love diners too. I love a simple like 2-egg breakfast, you know. I like to add a fruit cup though. You know, really living it up. It's funny, there are not a lot of places around me, so I live in New York City, that are open for breakfast. I mean, there are plenty of bagel shops, don't get me wrong, but like a sit-down restaurant with a hot breakfast. I mean, okay, the bagel places also make like pancakes and eggs and whatnot, but I like a place, like a diner-esque place. So luckily there is a diner at the end of my block that I think might even be open 24 hours. I don't know if it still is, but at least it was at one point. I do wish there were more places like that open early. Most places in New York are open at brunch time, which, depending on who you ask, brunch can be at like 9, 10. Brunch can be at 12. Brunch can be at 3 o'clock. Okay, no place opens at 3. I think the latest any place opens for brunch is like 12. So, sidebar. I'm using the wrong color here. It's not the color I planned on using. I planned on using black, but remember, I colored this gray too dark and I didn't realize it was the gray until I started piping. And I had this moment. I was like, oh, should I redo it? Should I leave it? I made 2 of these cookies. I had already done the other one in black. So, decision time. Clearly, I decided to redo it. Now, I left this in because I wanted you to see how I fixed that. That's that thingamajiggy tool, that pink tool that I was using. Very handy. Highly recommend having that around. Makes it easy to scrape off small parts or even scrape off an entire cookie. So after I made this, of course, I kind of wish that I had done the dark gray first instead of black. But here we are. For the design of this one, I'm doing sort of an ombre effect. I guess it would be most ombre if I had actually ended it with gray. But as you will see momentarily, the third color is the pinkish reddish. Did we determine this is mauve? I don't know if we did. Yeah, so this is the final color. Just as something a little different. So the one before this, I intermingled all of the colors, and this kind of ombre effect is pretty popular with balloon walls in real life. So I thought, oh, why not? Back to breakfast. So are you a sweet or a savory breakfast person? I used to be sweet 100% of the time. Always. Give me pancakes, waffles. I was born and raised in Vermont, and so I am 100% all about real maple syrup. And when I go to a restaurant that doesn't serve real maple syrup, back in the day when I would only eat sweet breakfast, I don't know, I just didn't like eggs that much. I would order chocolate chip pancakes because that was the only kind of pancake that I was willing to eat without real maple syrup. I know. These days, I've tended more towards the savory breakfast. I really can't have a sweet breakfast and have that just be it. My ideal, my friends, is to do a savory breakfast with a little side of sweet. So when I go with my dad, we love to each get our own 2-egg breakfast and then we share one pancake. So shout out to my dad. Love you, Dad. Yeah, I mostly savory with a side of sweet. That's my perfect situation. Now I'm thinking about what I want to have for breakfast today. Definitely a 2-egg breakfast, but the place we're going to does not have maple syrup, so I'm contemplating bringing my own maple syrup if I really want to get a pancake. How much extra do I feel like being? That is the question of the day. Anyway, so I let that crust, and at this point, or I let the first layer of balloons crust. At this point, I think I'm getting kind of lazy because you can see that some of the balloons still kind of have little peaks on them. If I wasn't so lazy, definitely could do what I'm doing here, which is to kind of settle them. And I guess, for the top layer, it's most important to make sure that those settle nicely. Just going in with some layering, layer. I'm also dreaming about coffee right now, so I definitely haven't shared that. I'm sharing so much today. In the last couple of years, I've had some various health issues, largely brought on by stress and not taking care of myself and working too much. So yeah, not good. And I'm young. I'm 32, although I'm going to be 33 real soon. My birthday is in June. Um, June 12th, in case anyone's wondering. Anyway, what was I talking about? What was I talking about? I completely lost my train of thought. Birthday, young. Oh, right, health issues. So I used to be a religious coffee drinker, high test, real stuff, caffeinated coffee drinker. And then when I've been going through these various health things, I've had to cut out caffeine and coffee a few different times. So I've gotten to the point now where I'm used to not drinking caffeine. I gotta say though, when I'm not drinking caffeine, well, I would much rather have a decaf coffee than like decaf tea because I just love coffee. Like, it's just so much more robust than even like the blackest of black teas. I get super good black tea from like England and I sometimes, this might be blasphemy, but I sometimes brew 2 tea bags and I let them sit for way too long. But anyway, I digress. Talk about my tea and coffee habits. Yeah. So the lines here are dried and I'm just generously smothering them in the Sugar Art Sterling Pearl in New Silver mixed with their color solution just to give it an extra spackle. I recommend if you can, I can't always. But if the icing that you're using is kind of in the vein of the color of the metallic you're using, it will help with the coverage because you don't have to work quite as hard to get a really opaque coverage. So that's why I use like the lighter gray here on the bottom. If you're using gold, then I recommend doing like a golden yellow to pipe below your gold. I don't usually do that. I mean, sometimes if it's convenient, I do that. But often you'll see me not do that. Because #lazy. All right, what else am I doing? Oh, I think I'm going to add a couple of extra balloons. Nope. Oh, I'm going to paint some of the balloons. I forgot. So at this point, I'm kind of feeling like I'm not sure that this cookie is like coming together. And I'm not super proud of my balloons. I'm going to be honest. They're kind of blobby. I don't know how balloon wally they look. But here we are. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So the first thing I do is I start painting some of them. And then as I'm painting them, I'm like, okay, it's still not really coming together. And then at some point I decide to add my signature. I don't know if it's my signature, but I feel like I do it a lot. I'm going to add my splatter in a moment because I'm like, yeah, it just needs a splatter to bring it all together. I often do a splatter for 2 reasons. One is if I feel like it just brings designs together really well. I don't know. It's a simple thing to add like extra design element to a cookie. And then sometimes I use it actually to mask mistakes. So most commonly I'll do it like if I have painted some sort of element with the metallic and I didn't do a very good job, then I'll come in with the splatter and it just distracts the eye from any poor painting job. So just a side note there for you, friends. Or sometimes if I'm trying to mask like craters or something else, it works wonders. So let's talk about this little balloon situation. This is my biggest disappointment from this set. I'm going to be honest with y'all. And the reason for that is because as you're going to see, well, by the end of this cookie, the balloon actually craters, which is very sad. And Excuse me, hold on. So I worked so hard with this set to not let anything crater. Now, I think what happened is two things. First of all, I'm going to be doing this balloon on top of this flood, and it's really important when you're doing a second layer design that you do it on top of a flood that has just barely crusted. We're talking like 15 minutes of drying, and I can already tell here that this looks too dry. So something about flooding on top of a dry surface, it makes the second layer infinitely more prone to crater. Now I'm frustrated here because I used a soft peak, and even this cratered. My only other guess is that this was the end of a very long day of decorating. So usually by the end of the day, my icing is a bit less stable. Excuse me. Those are my only other ideas. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. When I saw it, I was like so incredibly disappointed. I thought to myself, maybe I won't include this cookie in the set because I was just that unhappy with it. But I decided, you know what? It's a teaching opportunity. No one is perfect. I get craters too. So I decided to leave it in. So you saw me there adding some white diamond dust. And now I'm just going to add the little squiggledy-doo for the balloony-doo. And this is remember when I was doing the first balloon cluster, I did this same kind of thing on the bottom. And I wanted to just replicate that again. Just because, again, I felt like it needed something extra. Just a little something, something. Mesmerized by my own piping. And there we go. I believe we have 2 cookies left. All right. So since I did the other star balloon wall, I thought it would be a grand idea to do a star balloon, a single star balloon, just to kind of help that star balloon wall feel less lonely. I don't know. Is that really necessary? I don't know. But this design here is actually going to be wet on wet. And when you're doing a really large surface wet on wet, this is how you want to do it. You want to outline the sections in the color that you're ultimately piping. This makes it easier to not overflood, first of all. And I don't know if it's really necessary to outline in the colors that you're ultimately piping, but it just helps me visually to know, okay, this is getting flooded in this color. Maybe you would get some color bleed if you didn't. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know if it's necessary, but I digress. All right. So interesting. I don't know why I decided to start with the outside. I guess maybe that makes sense. I don't know. Does it really matter? Maybe, maybe not. This is where using a thinner flood is definitely going to make your life a lot easier. And again, so I did 2 single balloons, and I wanted to provide some variety in techniques used. So the first one I did like a more traditional, second layer balloon. This one is going to be a wet on wet, which honestly I actually like better. Super happy with this. So I'm just flooding up against the shape You might want to actually do like an outline with your flood first, but I felt pretty confident that I could do this well without that. Just using my scribe here to kind of finesse the bottom of that balloon. And then I do believe I'm going to use, let's see, what am I doing? Oh, I let that dry. Oh yeah, right. Okay, I let that dry. And then I'm outlining it just to add a little extra like dimension and finesse to the design. Love it. Love, love, love. Super happy Grace. and then I'm going to add, there we go, a little squiggly-doo line at the bottom. Love it. Love it. And there we go. All right, last cookie of the set. So this is supposed to look like those balloon letters that you hang as like a garland. And if I do say so myself, it definitely does. I really hesitated about whether to flood this cookie black, but as I was like, I only hesitated because if you're actually eating these cookies, it's not like the most pleasant experience to eat a black cookie. I mean, mine tastes good because I don't use too much food coloring and I use a lemon royal icing recipe. I use lemon juice, so the lemon juice masks any like weird oversaturation of color. But it turns your mouth funny colors. So yeah, but when I was looking at the colors and the design of this set, I was like, it really does need to be black because the black is also going to help it pop the most. Big fan. This is obviously a super dark black. Like this is a black, which I actually find very satisfying to watch. To watch it happen, watch the magic happen. The only thing I regret about this cookie is the color that I flood the letters in, and you're going to see this in a moment. So I'm going to let that just barely crust, right? Remember, so we're doing a second layer, and for it to help it not crater, you want to do it when the bottom layer is just barely crusted. So I'm just kind of laying the groundwork here for my balloon thingamajigger. All right. So this is the only thing I regret is outlining the letters in black. And the reason I regret it is just because filming it, like, it's really hard to see what I'm doing, which is kind of unfortunate since, big focus of what I do is the video itself, but here we are. The reason I did it in black is that typically when I know I'm going to paint something on a second layer, I prefer to pipe it in the color of the flood, because I find that to be more forgiving when you're painting, because if you miss a little bit of the edge, it's going to blend in with the flood. which is generally what I prefer to do. I know I said a few minutes ago that you want to do it in a color close to what you're painting it, but this is usually my go-to. Now, obviously, bummer, and you can see this a little bit better. I did have to like mess with the lighting a lot of this video to try to make it easier to see. Yay. So pretty. So pretty. This was definitely way more satisfying to like flood in person, but here we are. Again, that's a soft peak that I'm using for all of that. Anything that I'm doing that I'm afraid is going to crater, I try to do at the beginning of my decorating. So I'm using the freshest icing possible. Again, when I get towards the end of my day, which can be long, it can be upwards of like 8-10 hours of decorating, depending on what I'm undertaking, how many things are going wrong, you know, all that good stuff. So what was I going to say? Oh, right. So then you might be asking then, Grace, like, why did that single balloon crater? Why didn't you leave it to the end of the day? I wasn't planning on doing that design. I was going to paint the base of the cookie just with some metallic and then do a flood on top, or like do the balloon on top of that. But for whatever reason, I decided to pivot. I don't know. I just did. It just happened. Yeah, this is so much black icing. I only made 2 of these as usual. Trying to think. I gave one of them to my best friend that I grew up with. She's a big the Graceful Baker fan, and she keeps a lot of my cookies. So like I don't know if she's ever eaten any. Maybe she did at the very beginning, but for the most part, she just keeps them and brings them out for various holidays and uses them as decoration. And I love her. So she's got like the ultimate Graceful Baker graveyard. And yeah, so when I made this set, I gave her, I think, almost one of every color, every design, because I wanted her to keep them. I wanted to have, you know, a reminder of hitting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Which reminds me, I still haven't opened my plaque. I really need to do that. I wanted to open that on camera, which, by the way, I hit 100,000 subscribers January 3rd. It's now, June 2nd? Yeah, I know. Although, okay, it's June 2nd that I'm filming this. I don't know when I'm going to post this. But, yeah, sorry. The, the beginning of the year, there are so many holidays and, like, cookie moments, that I just felt like I needed to do it. So, okay. This here, I'm demonstrating that I need to do a second layer. So the first layer I like to paint, and then the second layer I like to dab, like I'm doing here. I just feel like, because I feel like sometimes when you paint it, you kind of like take off the first layer to begin with, which is not good. Not good. And I'm using, as you can see, a pretty small brush here. When you're painting with metallics, you don't want to use a brush that's like has too many bristles, because just like the bigger the end of the brush, you know, the more like liquid it takes in, and that's just, you want to have more control is what I would say. You'll have more control with like a smaller brush end. So this last finishing touch is to just add these little loops, which you can see I'm kind of wrapping around the line to make it look like what am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm saying. To make it look like it's actually like wrapping around, like they're actual hooks. That makes sense. Circles. Okay. Wow. We are done, my friends. This was an hour and a half, to be precise. 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 26 seconds. We're not there yet. Obviously, we've got another like 26 seconds to go. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Do we like it when I just talk through the whole thing and tell you about other things? Because I honestly I don't have enough cookie stuff to talk about the whole time. But let me know if you like the style of this video of me just talking and sharing me and my life and cookies and all the things. I love you all, and I hope you have a sweet, sweet day. Bye.